Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and Link2 tweeted this out. They are one of my sponsors. Link2 portfolio company Ripple gains in principal approval for a major payment institution license in Singapore, paving the way for enhanced XRP use and cross-border transfers. An exciting step for crypto globally. I just checked. Link2 has Ripple private equity on the platform right now, and as I told you in the last video, I got a text this morning that somebody had a dream that today was the end of this case. We shall see. But one thing's for sure, that Ripple equity, when that announcement comes, that Ripple equity won't be there long, I don't think. Now, this made me laugh out loud today. eGrag Crypto, sometimes I think he just does these to toy with us. And I think that's fun. I think we need some of that too. I think he's serious and jokes around with some of his terms sometimes. But I'm not making fun of him with this tweet. I just thought it was funny, the disparity between $3.30 and $250. I said, that's like me saying my son is either going to play for Little League or the New York Yankees. But I love the menu of options. And we love eGrag Crypto. Here he's saying $3.30 or $2.50. He's got lower targets, higher targets. Here's what he says. Through a simple alignment analysis, comparing the current price action to previous cycles and following the established pattern, XRP can reach 330 in alignment with cycle B, or B 250 in alignment with cycle A. Well, I mean, look, as crazy as the 250 might sound to you, back in 2018, I can't remember what the exact figure was, but it was over 30,000%. I was there, folks. The appreciation was unbelievable. Okay, funny tweet from Mr. Huber too. Nobody needs the internet. It's full of hucksters, fraudsters, and scam artists. This is what they were saying. This is back in 1995 from Newsweek. Do our computer pundits lack all common sense? The truth is, no online database will replace your daily newspaper. No CD-ROM can take the place of a competent teacher. No computer network will change the way government works. What the internet hucksters won't tell you is that the internet is one big ocean of unedited data. So this is the same kind of crap that Gary Gensler is trying to say now about digital assets. Now, I have a question for you folks. Have we found the real puppet master of ETHgate? Is his name Gary Cohen? Now, for those of you that don't know who Gary Cohen is, this guy was the president of Goldman Sachs. Okay, so he has the resume to be in the what many would call deep state. Look, if you didn't think there was a deep state a long time ago, go ahead and write it down. There is one, and this guy, if anybody would be one of the poster children for a deep state, this guy would be it. He was Goldman Sachs. He was, I think, national security advisor to Trump. I mean, this is one of those guys that's smart enough to be a chameleon and make both sides like him, but he's probably pretty definitively on one side. But I'm going to let you be the judge as to whether he's the puppet master of ETHgate, the real puppet master. I mean, the top of the food chain, okay? This was a clip I did not play for you in my last video. This is a clip from last night, and this is Brian, what was his last name? Costello, okay? This is a clip from Brian Costello. I'm going to start at the, if I can get it to the
2016 presidential election comes in, and Trump gets elected. Nobody realizes how he's going to handle China. And there's a key player in all this that doesn't really get mentioned enough. So Trump hires a guy named Gary Cohen, who's the president of Goldman, as his White House economic advisor. So he put Jay Clayton in the job. He made Goldman, they did the whole Alibaba IPO for Goldman. He comes in, he was in charge of putting the financial regulators in place for the Trump administration. He was a big Hillary supporter. Everybody was kind of shocked. Trump hired this guy. He was pushed by Jared Kushner. And if you ever listen to Clayton speak, he never says how he got the job. He says one of his clients introduced him to Trump, and then they asked him if he wanted the job. It was Gary Cohn from Goldman.
And Gary Cohn also was vice chairman of IBM, who is part of the Muskoka group, and
actually, and also IBM was partnered with Stellar.
Yeah, you know that.
Stellar USDC, which is Ethereum based now, runs on Stellar.
Yeah. So he puts in the Alibaba lawyers to run, and I think there were two reasons for that. One, they wanted to keep the China door open. So what better thing to do than put the guys that just make huge fees off a China IPO? I think Goldman wanted to keep that open. And the second thing is there was some Biden corruption sitting in the SEC, right? If you look, Hunter's partner. So previously, Hunter's law school classmate was running enforcement at the SEC in 2016. A guy named Andrew Chesney or something like that. If you follow the Russia hoax stuff, Peter Strzok's wife got promoted, Melissa Hodgman, who does a lot.
All right, I won't go any deeper into that. You get the picture. Turns out Wheezy had called this back on February 20th, 2023. Wow, if there's one thing you do today, please read this article. How American families were hurt for China. Be prepared to get angry. Clayton was a Gary Cohn plant. Wall Street was salivating over blockchain infrastructure, but there were two major barriers to sell shares in companies to the public. First, there was a lack of clarity in regulations regarding which cryptocurrencies were securities and the SEC's process for determining this. This risk needed to be removed for Bitcoin and Ether mining companies to go public. Fear not, the SEC has its China team, the Alibaba IPO team, including Cohen's plant, and the go-to Goldman attorney Jay Clayton was running the SEC with his cadre of Wall Street connected attorneys. On June 14, 2018, just a few months after Cohen's resignation, William Hinman gave his now infamous and legendary personal opinion that the Yahoo Finance All Markets Crypto Summit, which appears to be edited by senior staffer at the SEC. Hinman stated, And then we've got this. Ether took off before Hinman could drop the microphone, but more significantly for Clayton and Hinman's friends on Wall Street, the path was cleared for the pipeline of Bitcoin and Ethereum blockchain infrastructure companies to go public. Clayton and Hinman's law firms were about to cash in on the shocking declaration, as would the Wall Street investment banks. They could pay them back later, which they have done with new advisor roles. All right? This is the same guy, Gary Cohn, right here.
I don't think you have much hope of reaching a public that doesn't have a professional need to know.
I completely agree with that. I almost think you'd scare the public if you put this out. Like, why are they telling me this? Should I be concerned about my bank?
In other words, lie to the public.
Like my insurance company.
The public's too stupid to deal with it.
Who tell me what they're doing with my assets if they just assume they're going to pay my claim. Right? I think you've got to think of the unintended consequences of taking a public that has more full faith and confidence in the banking system than maybe people in this room do. That
they're literally laughing. They're laughing at the American public.
And confidence in the banking system. They know the FDIC insurance is there. They know it works. They put their money in. They're going to get their money out. So there's a select crowd of people that are in the institutional side. And if they want to understand this, they're going to find a way to understand this. There's a bunch of law firms represented in this room. There's a bunch of people that charge them by the hour a lot of money to explain this all to them. And it's fine. I don't have a problem with that. And they all have huge staffs. But I would be careful about the unintended consequences of starting to blast too much of this out in the general public.
I wondered whether there are some market.
And look who's in the room with him, Jay Clayton, on the same committee.
Of whether you're being heard. And I think about TLAC. So TLAC should respond to good and bad news about the institutions. And it's really important. I mean, it's a little bit conflicted, right? I mean, it's important that people understand they can be bailed in, but you don't want a huge run on the institution. But they're going to be. And it could be an early warning signal to the FDIC and the primary regulators when these things happen. And there may be some other prices, this is similar to what Jay was saying, in the market, that you can tell whether people understand how who's going to be protected, who isn't going to be protected. It would be, I think, an interesting study to look at the evolution of market prices in a situation like March of 2020, for example, and see whether people understood what might happen.
Okay, now I have a Gary Cohen file. Here's part of the file. This is when he was leaving the Trump administration. Listen to what Trump said.
This is Gary Cohen's last meeting in the cabinet and of the cabinet, and he's been terrific. He may be a globalist, but I still like him. He is seriously a globalist, there's no question.
Globalist, huh? Then there was this. This is what he said about Bitcoin.
Talk about the infrastructure. That's the highways and the pipes that are necessary for Bitcoin, but they're necessary for many other applications. And I think they're very useful, and I'm very bullish on them. When you talk about Bitcoin in itself, I don't have a strong opinion on Bitcoin. In essence, I'm not.
These people all know who Satoshi Nakamoto is.
A strong believer in Bitcoin. It is a developing asset, potentially. And for all the reasons it's a strong developing asset class, it may fail. Remember, part of the integrity of an asset class, or part of the integrity of a system, is knowing who owns it and knowing.
Exactly. That's what adults think like. Now, this is also the same guy that you may not remember. This is the same guy who right here met with Christopher Giancarlo back in, I believe, just look. Giancarlo, who left the US CFTC at the end of the 5-year term as chairman in April, told CoinDesk in an interview, one of the untold stories of the past few years is that the CFTC, the Treasury, and the SEC, the National Economic Council director at the time, Gary Cohen, believed that the launch of Bitcoin futures would have the impact of popping the Bitcoin bubble, and it worked. They all sat down and planned it. Okay? This was back in 2018 or whenever. Then this is Gary Cohen on stage with Glenn Hutchins and Jay Clayton.
Perspective on it. Let's talk first about digital currencies, and let's talk about crypto stuff. Digital currencies today, roughly 92% of all currencies in the world is digitized.
You're talking about fiat versus crypto?
Just currency.
All right, so break them up though. So look, I totally believe in digital fiat.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
Digital dollars, digital yen, digital euros. I don't. Those aren't crypto to me. That's digital fiat. So I just want everyone to understand that we're probably in more agreement.
No, it's not agreement. I'm just saying. Okay. I'm sort of dividing these two things apart, just like you just did. So the first thing you have to understand is that moving to a digital currency is a very straightforward thing to do. People call them, and the two things can interact, of course. Some people call them stable coins. Some people call them, the Chinese are working on their own. Taking that thing on paper and turning it into a digitized thing is a very straightforward thing to do. And today, the vast majority of money in the world is already digital because it's just electronic entries in banks and central banks. So the notion that it's some big revolutionary thing, I can take 8%. By the way, Ken Rogoff's book, The End of Cash, says the 80 to 90% of U.S. $100 bills are used in organized crime and tax evasion. So the thing that's most useful to the bad guys is cash. It's the ultimate sort of anonymized security. But anyway, so that's a straightforward, easy thing to do. It should be done, and we just got to get there.
Agreed.
Right. That's the end. That's easy.
Amen.
Now, if you talk about the whole crypto kind of world. I got to this from the kind of the payments thing because I've been looking for a way in which we could take the cost of payments down by 99%, the way we've taken down the cost of trading in securities. In the payments world, we use we oftentimes use the term of the payments rails. There's the credit card rails, there's checking rails, there's the FedWire rails. Goes around. So let's to understand how I think to think about the cryptocurrency world is there are three parts of it: the blockchain, the token, and the protocol. And the three of them operate together to create one solution, one integrated solution that has the capacity to revolutionize the way we move things of value around the world. Let me use a railroad analogy to make the point.
Okay, and then so that was Gary Cohen. Then you got this former White House economic advisor Gary Cohen joins blockchain startup, And the startup that he joined was Spring Labs. So I went and looked at Spring Labs. They developed data sharing network for U.S. home energy projects. Blockchain startup Spring Labs has put its first fraud prevention tool into production using a permissioned version of Ethereum. So that's a red flag for me, and then I found more red flags. Spring Labs investors, Galaxy Digital, which would be Mike Novogratz, ex-Goldman Sachs, and Multicoin Capital, who was shorting XRP and going out and bragging about it in 2018. And they were shorting it because they thought that Ripple might be sued over XRP being a security. And their limited partners happened to be Andreessen Horowitz and Union Square Ventures, who happened to be the two venture capital firms that were involved with Jay Clayton in getting Ethereum a free pass. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family. But I have a question. Is Gary Cohen the ETH puppet master? Thanks for listening.